Do you rely on astrology to make living, or yeah, just this
Um,
fun part
yeah,
of
for a while I did. Yeah, for a while I did. Right now I rely mostly on teaching to make my bread and butter. But it's also
Mhm.
because how can I say? I'm a little bit scared of like going public and being like, oh, like I'm an astrologer. Because like in my
Mhm.
society, like it's just not very common, you know? So I think, especially because I got into astrology very young, like around 19 years old, 20 years old. So
Hi, good afternoon.
hi, good. How are you?
I'm doing well, doing good. So, how are you?
I'm also good, thank you. My name is Michelle. What's your name?
My name is Anand.
Anand. Nice to meet you, Anand. Where do you live, Anand?
Nice to meet you too. I live in India. It is eastern part of India.
Wonderful. I live in Cyprus. Do you know this country? It's like a
Cyprus?
very small, yeah, it's a very small country. So maybe you don't know it.
No, I know. I have heard the name. I
It's
don't know
near the Middle
exactly where it.
East. Yeah, so it's like a very close to the Middle East, just under Turkey, next to Syria and Lebanon.
Okay, Syria, Lebanon, got it.
Not so far from there. Yeah.
Okay. So, what do you do apart from this Cambly, or just you are just doing this
Uh,
Cambly?
yeah, no, I teach mainly, but I'm also an astrologer. Indian people know about that. So, yeah, I'm also an astrologer.
Oh,
How about yourself?
okay, you're astrologer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't know anything about astrology, so please let me know a little bit about it.
Okay, yeah, of course. So what I do is, okay, the one thing is I don't really do predictions for people, okay? Like I don't really do that type of astrology. The astrology that I do is more so to help people understand more about themselves and therefore make more constructive choices for themselves, you know? So what I do is I read people's natal charts, which is like a map. Um, right? This map basically represents the placement of all planets at the moment of your birth, as seen from the location of your birth at the time of your birth, right? So it's believed that when we incarnate, right, into this life, that we kind of take on the quality of the moments that we were born under, right? And so this map then becomes like a blueprint, an energetic blueprint, right, to this current incarnation. So yeah, I get to analyze that with people and I get to talk about different aspects of it. But again, like I said, my work doesn't really focus on prediction at all. It mostly focuses on healing and, that kind of thing.
Okay, great. So yes,
Yeah,
you told one word, incarnation. Okay, so you
uh,
believe in incarnation, kind of, right? So
I
yes,
do.
Indian
Yeah,
people believe in it. Yeah,
I
and
do
you know
believe it.
astrology. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hmm. I feel like astrology kind of really suggests that's the case as well. I mean, I know that the soul is larger than the chart itself, but I know that every chart in each lifetime, right, would be different. And therefore, we are kind of choosing in between lifetimes the actual energetics that will best help us continue our dharma, right? So like, yeah, I definitely believe in it. I definitely feel like I've been here before. Have you? you know,
Mm.
like I don't remember it, but I definitely feel like I have been. So there's that.
I think astrology was I know a little bit. It was quite very prevalent in Middle East uh,
Yeah.
during I think 700 or 800 years back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it was very prevalent. So India believes in astrology since time of immemorial, and
Yeah.
still astrology is very prevalent in India. There are people in India who want the prediction of their future,
Mm-hmm.
marriage, everything. So it is very
Yeah.
prevalent in India. Yeah.
I know, I know. It's actually kind of amazing to me. Excuse me, as an astrologer, to like see societies where the practice is like very commonplace and embedded and integrated, because like in my culture, here is like predominantly Christian and Muslim. So we don't really practice astrology as a culture, you know? So I find myself having to explain the scope of astrology and what astrology can or cannot do most times before I even get somebody interested. Do you know what I mean? But in
Mhm.
India, it's a very kind of like embedded practice. I think it's very cool. I think it's a useful practice. I don't know about marriage and all that, but like I know that at least for when you have a child, you know, coming into this world, like I definitely feel like what an amazing tool for parents to understand the nature of their child, right? And to be able to create an environment for that child that is constructive to the energies latent within this child, right? I feel like that type of awareness can completely change someone's parenting, completely change someone's quality of life. So yeah, I find that pretty cool. In my culture though, it's not very common. I have to kind of convince people.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Yes.
what about
How
yourself?
did you pick up it?
What do you
Hello.
do, by the way, Anand?
I am a teacher. I teach my students, right? So I have a tutoring center and I teach chemistry. Okay.
Oh,
So
lovely.
yeah. So yeah, I can relate because I know a little bit about astrology. Okay. So
Mm,
astrology is not that something is new. It is since time of immemorial, and you know, astrologers, great astrologers, has been inventing lots of things. Like in India, we had a great astrologer known Aryabhat who has invented the zero. Okay,
mhm,
so
mhm,
invention of zero has been done by Aryabhat. The name of person is
mhm,
Aryabhat, and he was a great astrologer. So yes,
mhm.
yeah, it is very prevalent in India. I
Yeah.
wanted to know that how did you learn it? Is it a practice that you picked up from your parents or somewhere
No,
around you, or just automatically it came into you? You
it was
inclined towards it.
very, yeah, that's a good question. No, my family was never interested in astrology. My family never went to an astrologer, knew about astrology, nothing. Neither did I growing up, to be honest. Like growing up, I didn't think, you know, I was always drawn to it. I was never exposed to real astrology. I was exposed to kind of like TV astrology, right? And like internet astrology. I was always like very drawn to it. However, I never really thought growing up, like, because in my world, right, you don't really see people make livings or, you know, go for this type of thing. So yeah, definitely didn't think much. You know, I went to study. I went to university in Dublin. I studied English literature. So I did that for about three
Hmm.
years. But I felt extremely creatively restless. Right, I felt like what I was learning just wasn't enough for me. It just wasn't satiating my need to hone into it's like to develop a skill, you know, to be exposed to certain types of information. I was like, ah, this is I don't know how I'm going to walk out into the world with like a skill set, you know. So I was talking to somebody one day and they were like, oh, you know, what would you like to do, you know, if you could add something onto your degree, like what would you like to do? And I was like, you know, I've kind of always been semi interested in astrology. You know, there's something about that that draws me. And they were like, oh, did you know like my astrologer lives in Dublin? And I lived in Dublin at the time. So I was like, oh, no way. So they were like, yeah, and he runs an astrology school. So here's his details. You can call him, blah, blah, blah. He's actually pretty good. I said, all right, amazing. Let me see. So I called him. I sign up to year one of this 4 year course. And
Hmm.
I was still in college at the same time. I was doing both in tandem. And when I showed up, like, I remember how I felt like during my first astrology class, which I was like, wow, this material is so engaging. My brain felt like a sponge. It felt like I was a child again, you know, and it just really wanted to soak up all this information in. And it just felt so natural. And so, like, yeah, it opened up like a lot of interesting things in my brain. So I was like, this is so cool. So I just continued doing it. Yeah, then at one point there was a little bit of a, you know, between like, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna be an astrologer? Am I gonna do this? You know? But yeah, that's how kind of how I got into it. It was a bit random and definitely not I would say more fateful than random, but like yeah, it just wasn't like really part of my background growing up. It wasn't something that necessarily I would be exposed to. Yeah.
I got it. I got it. So I have a question like, uh, does astrology help you to make your living, or are you relying? Do you rely on astrology to make living, or yeah, just it's
Um,
fun part
yeah.
of.
For a while I did. Yeah. For a while I did. Right now I rely mostly on teaching to make my bread and butter. But it's also
Mhm.
because how can I say? I'm a little bit scared of like going public and being like, oh, like I'm an astrologer. Because like in my
Mhm.
society, like it's just not very common, you know? So I think, especially because I got into astrology very young, like around 19 years old, 20 years old. So, I was already, let's say, a trained astrologer by like 23, but at the same time, I didn't feel, being an astrologer is a huge responsibility. You have people coming to you, at different stages of their life seeking guidance, seeking help. As a 23-year-old, I wasn't sure whether I could trust in my own levels of maturity to take on people, right? I was having clients who were like going through divorces and all kinds of stuff. So I was like, I have no scope of your experience, as a 23-year-old. So I don't know how correct it is for me to hold space. So I paused it for a while. I go through these stages of like second guessing myself. Now I'm trying to like get back into it and kind of make it my bread and butter again. Like ideally, yes, I would love to live off astrology, but yeah, working towards it. I'm trying to design my website right now. So one step at a time. Yeah.
Okay, so you are gonna looking for client throughout your website, right?
Yeah, most of my clients come through either word of mouth or like I also have a Twitter account where I post like free astrological interpretations of like the full moon and the new moon, right? So I also gain some traction from there. And yeah, social media mostly. My website is just gonna be like the central thing where everything is listed.